presentation, and I'll call on the Chancellor to take over. Thank you.
Thank you, thank you. If we can go ahead and bring up the first slide, please.
You have your,
Can everyone hear okay?
yes, ma'am.
Okay. So, you know, this presentation is it's one of these presentations that I'm incredibly proud of what you all are going to see and experience. You know, a year and a half ago, before I was a chancellor, I knew that we had some incredible programs at all of our sites, San Bernardino Valley College, Crafton Hills, and also with KVCR. But my focus at that time as president, right, was really just on Valley College. And a year ago, when I became the chancellor, I thought, now how are we going to bring these three strong, independent, fantastic programs all together to make one just like super dynamic program? And we put a lot of thought into that, and we started down that path, and that included consistency of meeting and talking with each other and finding out what each area wanted to specialize in and what they could bring to the table. So it was constant collaboration, which was just fantastic to see it work in action. And in that collaboration, there were some disruptors, right? There were some that didn't, appreciate the directions in which the rest of the group wanted to go. But that was okay, because I think because of that, we have such a stronger program now. And 6 months ago, we put together a solid plan that was approved by the board. And today, there is such incredible synergy around this program that everyone, even if not directly related to this program, right, wants to see it succeed and wants to somehow become a part of it. So it's exciting to see, and I hope that you see and you hear the passion today when everyone presents. And because we have so much to share, we literally started with about 125, 150 slides, right? And we've pared it down to, I think it's about 45-ish now. So as you can see, we have a lot to share with you all. So I'd like to respectfully ask if we can hold the questions until the end of the presentation, because I think that by the end of the presentation, we're going to have answered, hopefully, all, if not most, of your questions. So if we can, the next slide. As you can see, we have more presenters than usual for this strategy session. However, everyone that you see on the screen has played such an important part, had an important role in bringing these academies together, that we thought it'd be appropriate for you all to hear from them. So there's, you're going to hear all about their successes. Next slide, please. And so for the agenda, we're going to start out with a short review of KVCR and its relevance to the presentation, looking at the strategic plan also that we prepared for KVCR. Next, we'll have Crafton Hills and San Bernardino Valley College discuss and highlight their programs. And you'll hear things about degrees, certificates, curriculum, job outlook, our connection with guided pathways, and so on. And then we're going to also discuss how this all connects, how the campuses connect with KVCR and student-based work programs within KVCR. And then finally, our next steps, what we're working on, what we're excited about, what's coming up later. So with that, for the next hour and 10 minutes, that was really for the presenters, the next hour, 10 minutes. 1 minute per slide. We're gonna highlight our program for you. So with that, I'll turn it over to Jose.
Thank you, Madam Chancellor. Just as a reminder, this was approved by you, the Board of Trustees, in our KVCR Inspiring Possibilities Plan. There are 3 strategic directions. The first one is align SBCCD Institute of Media Arts IMA with KVCR. Number 2, ensure financial sustainability for KVCR. And number 3, provide TV and radio content that is relevant to the SBCCD community. What we're focusing today is mostly on item number 1, strategic direction number 1. However, I also want to make the connection to our strategic plan. As you know, one of the things that we've been working on is creating our strategic plan, our North Star, as we've been calling it for a while, right? What is it that is guiding us to make sure that everything that we do has a purpose? So within our strategic plan, there is goal number 1, which is eliminate barriers to student access and success. Within that goal, there's an objectives, which you have approved already. Implement a board-approved KVCR plan. That's the connection that we are making with the strategic plan to make sure that everything that we do is connected to our North Star. So the KVCR Inspiring Possibilities, again, just a reminder, it was a collaboration between many folks. Some of them you'll see here at the table. There was management, faculty, station staff. It contained a lot of information, but you have seen that, so I will just go straight forward. So the goal, again, number 1, strategic direction number 1 is to align the media academies. I know we have used the word media academy in the past, so now hopefully we'll clarify today what that synonym is for and how each one of the colleges have their own program and what kind of great things they're doing at the colleges. So for Valley, it's called the IMA, Institute of Media Arts, and for Crafton, it's called Center for Digital Media. And that's what we call the Media Academy. So when we say Media Academies, that's what we refer to use synonym for both of them. Okay, now we're going to pass it over so you can hear a little bit or a lot about the IMA and Center for Digital Media.
This is me. Yes, so the Institute of Media Arts at San Bernardino Valley College, I look at it as kind of an auxiliary of our Film, TV, and Media Department. What that basically means is it's basically taking the practice and theory in the classroom and starting to put it into action. So that encompasses large-scale productions that we do within KVCR and sometimes outside of KVCR. Our internship program that we've designed with KVCR. It also encompasses further education and career development even after students get out of our program. So they get access to, we are the only public institution that I know of at this point that has a dedicated staff member helping our students find internships and jobs while they're at the campus and even outside of that. That was based on some research I did a few years ago. So there's that aspect of it, and then our big special events. So we've got one coming up next week, which is the 48-Hour Film Project. That is an international film festival, and we are the host partner for that for the Inland Empire. They just finished in Los Angeles. To give you context, the finalists get to go to Cannes Film Festival, and that all starts at Valley College. And then we have our spring event, which is our Wolverine Con and our International Student Film Festival, which this year will be from February 28th to March 2nd.
Hello, we are the Center for Digital Media. This is our umbrella term that we have at Crafton Hills College, and we are encompassing several disciplines.
Iris, would you mind introducing yourself?
Sure. My name is Dr. Iris Kern-Foster. I'm associate professor in the multimedia discipline, and I started at Crafton Hills College a little bit more than 4 years ago. Thank you. At Crafton Hills College, we are encompassing several disciplines under the Center for Digital Media. Mostly it's the multimedia discipline, which Peter, Gend, and I represent, but it's also tying into computer information systems and into computer science. So we actually even outside the computer sciences and the other sciences, because we have a very collaborative classroom strategy. Our goal is to be the program of choice for students who are seeking a job in this industry. And by job, we mean much more than employment. We know in the past, this used to be the terminology, even in the classes and the curriculum that was written, to provide for an entry-level job. Now, we have seen really early that our industry doesn't go that direction. We are preparing more for freelance opportunities. We are preparing for employment that is usually not that usual. And so one of the great things is that we are also in a regional partnership with makerspaces and entrepreneurship. So in that bigger conversation, we get constantly input on how we can make that happen. So we just want to really focus on that. We are getting people ready for this new age jobs, and of course also to move forward to a 4-year degree if that's the pathway.
Degrees and certificates. So since I started in 2018, we've updated all of our certificates and degrees to be more in line with professional standards, which also incorporates our new technology that we brought into the department. We've even redone completely our certificate model. These are all stackable. Most of them are no more than 4 or 5 classes, which means technically certain ones of them students could get done in a semester if they went full-time. Also, because they're only 4 or 5 classes, let's say somebody was a business major, but man, they're really interested in doing video for social media platforms. They could add these 4 or 5 classes, not go over their 70 units to transfer and not affect that at all, and still have space as they go into a 4-year university. Like for example, a social media studio video production certificate, one of the classes is a transferable GE, so it can be a requirement. And then plus they're stackable, so they kind of add on to each other. This fall, we launched 2 new certificates, our video broadcast and our audio broadcast certificates. And I'm really happy about this. As of fall 2024 will be our first interdisciplinary certificate that we did with our history department, historical documentary production. The idea of this simply is, one day I was driving around and I heard PBS was looking for more diversity in its documentary production. So I worked with our history chair and we came up with a series of courses that the students would take on the history level, then apply that research that they did and turn around basically a small form short subject documentary that would then, of course, air on KVCR. And so my thing is like, why not us? Why not San Bernardino Valley College be the center for documentary filmmakers? Oh, more. Sorry. So again, yes, we updated, all of these courses have been updated since 2018. And then I'd like to highlight a couple of our new ones this semester that launched. Our 103, Ethnicity and Identity in Media. I'm happy to announce that CSU has accepted that as the GE requirement for ethnic studies. So it's open to not only our students, obviously, in the film department, but all the students at Valley College can get into this. And again, I just felt that was very important. It's something we do in the humanities all the time, is talk about this, and I felt it was a great opportunity. The other one I want to highlight, which again ties in, I think, KVCR and some of their resources for us, is the color correction. Usually, you have to be at a 4-year university to take that class, and at USC, it's a 400-level class. So what that means is that's very upper division. I think it speaks again to equity. You can come to a community college and take that course. Not only will you take the course and finish it, but because we're using DaVinci Resolve, which is the industry standard technology, it qualifies students to get certified in it. And so that is a big thing for the industry. They're looking at who's been certified in that software. So we're able to do that at this level, and no one else in this region is teaching it. I can assure you, I checked. This is an example of all of our degrees now. Full transparency, I'm a co-lead for our Guided Pathways Committee at the campus. All of our degrees, right now, we have our maps set up, and I actually created a Canvas shell for our students where all the students can have access to it. So we have all our maps there, so they're already starting to look at them. But this is one for our transfer degree. In 2019, we did a soft launch on this, and we had 2 students sign up for it, and both of them finished within 2 years. One of them is scheduled to finish their degree at CSUN this coming year. So we've already kind of modeled it, and so this is just like an example of one of it. And again, you see work experience is worked into it as part of their options.
At Crafton Hills College, we also have the approach of having stackable degrees and certificates. Our three big directions that we're going there is digital animation, which is right now under revision because we looked into the industry data and what's actually possible, what is possible after 2 years of community college to really get into that field. And luckily, we have Peter who was able to come with all that knowledge and turn that program upside down, and he will talk more about that, how we're turning it into digital sculpting. Also at a technology level that's not that common for community colleges. And in that we have an associate degree and a certificate. So either a student takes the certificate or adds the GE requirements to it in order to turn it into a degree. So ideally a student leaves actually with a degree and a certificate at the same time. And they're all under the multimedia discipline. In graphic and media design, we turned this into one umbrella term because just graphic design is as such going down in numbers. Anyhow, if additional media skills are presented by candidates, that's where the numbers go up again. So we are very industry informed by the choices that we're making. Same thing, we have an associate's degree and a certificate of achievement. In multimedia, on the web development and interface design, we have also a very unique approach that Peter will talk more about. We are combining web development with user experience design, which is a very high-paying job. So that's an overall philosophy that we have. We want to prepare students for really good jobs. And in the last row, you see certificates that we call skills-focused certificates. That's similar to what Lucas was just describing. If we have a major that comes from a different field, from business, from communication, and they may want to add some skills to it. Or if they come from a certain interest, like sometimes we have students coming from the fine arts over to multimedia because they want to have a little bit more hands-on skills. We have a digital illustration certificate. This one we have specifically written for freelance opportunities. We know there is virtually no employment for illustrators. This is a freelance job, so we're preparing students for this freelance job, which they're also learning in a class that we see later that we have to prepare. We have a virtual reality design certificate that students ideally take after they've completed one of the other two, because it's a little bit more advanced, a word we're not allowed to use, so let's say it's a little bit more intermediate. And we also have a skills-focused certificate called Digital Marketing Certificate. We put this under business, so it's a combination of business classes, marketing and such, and digital media classes. Again, it's job market informed. We have seen that most of these positions are on the marketing departments and not on the media departments, so we figured it would be better for students to get this degree, or certificate in this case, on the business. We have a broad range of classes. A few that I want to highlight is the digital media portfolio class, where we are helping students from all these different areas that they may come from. So they are sharing one class, the animation students and the design students and the web students, to not only prepare their portfolios, but they also have mock interviews. They learn how to prepare for resumes and for portfolios that they can share with several opportunities they may have. We are also renaming a lot of these classes, so when they come on your board agenda, they might be still very similar. It's one of the directions that we're going is we're making them a little bit more program independent. So right now you see that we have a lot of software programs in the names of our classes. We are reducing the amount of software programs mentioned, so we can stay up to date in a heartbeat. So we don't need to change our curriculum as soon as a technology change happens, and we want to introduce that to our students.
Hey, everybody. My name is Peter Gend. I'm fairly new to Crafton Hills College. I've been here, I just completed my first year. I'm assistant professor of multimedia, and I specialize in animation, game design, and visual effects. So I'm going to just briefly go over 3 of our certificates here, and the first one is graphic design and multimedia. One of the things I really want to highlight, and you'll kind of see this as I go through all 3, is we really value making sure that regardless of what program students are in, that they all start together and they finish together. So you'll notice that Multimedia Foundations starts off all of these certificates, and Digital Media Portfolio finishes them off. Multimedia Foundations is, in our opinion, a pretty unique course that you're not going to find at virtually any community college or even 4-year school. In just, depending on how we offer it, 5, 8, 13, or 17 weeks, students learn Photoshop, Illustrator, Adobe InDesign, Maya, ZBrush, what am I leaving out? Adobe Premiere, Adobe After Effects, and I've probably left something out, but that's okay. They learn everything. Little bit of everything, mind you, but they learn everything. And the reason is that a lot of students who come into digital media aren't actually aware of how many possibilities there are. So even though they might think they want to go into graphic design, they may not know about UI and UX, they may not know about digital sculpture, or even how accessible something like animation and game design is nowadays. You no longer need the type of technology you once did. So we start them off there. Then they go through the courses they need in order to complete the program. In this case, you can see we have Photoshop, digital illustration, several others. But again, they finish off in Digital Media Portfolio, which Iris had briefly mentioned. This class has recently been completely revamped. As opposed to just teaching them how to create a portfolio to help them find a job, we also teach them real-world skills. As she mentioned, they go through mock interviews. They learn how to find jobs. They learn how to write cover letters. They learn how to write resumes. They learn on-the-job skills in order to be able to take critique and receive critique. All those things that probably many of us wish we had actually learned in school and not the hard way on the job that first time. We can go ahead and move on to the next slide. So as you can see here with our web development and interface design certificate, it starts the same way and ends the same way. One of the really cool and unique things, again, Iris had mentioned this very briefly about this certificate, is we emphasize web development just as much as we emphasize UI and UX. For those who aren't aware, UI and UX, that's interface and user experience. When you load up that Amazon app and everything just works, except you probably have a hard time returning things, that's on purpose. When you load up that Amazon app, that's all designed to make you buy as much as possible. UI and UX, that user experience is so incredibly important, and it's now just completely tied to web development because what do we view websites on? We don't view them on our 486DX computers from 1987 anymore. We view them on our phones. We view them on tablets. We view them on our watches. So all of that has to be designed, and I don't know if it's ever happened to any of you, but if you logged into Amazon and then it took you a while to realize you're not in the app, you're on the website, and they're almost the same experience, that's that whole user experience design, that UI and UX at play. And so we tie the two together very closely. We don't have students do 2 separate programs to learn those. Go ahead and advance. This is a topic I could go on hours for. In fact, I have a 2-hour presentation on this. I'm going to do it in about a minute and a half. I come from the world of animation and visual effects and game design, and I have very strong opinions on how it's taught. I'm sure Lucas could tell you that if we told him to teach writing, directing, acting, producing, audio engineering, electrical, and basically everything that could ever happen on a film set all in one class, or let's say two, I'll even give you three. That's not a possibility. Yet that's the way virtually every community college, not just in California, but in the country, teaches animation, game design, and visual effects. I'm sure many of you have watched a Marvel film or any other film that has 9 years of credits at the end, right? And those are just the folks that made it into the credits. It's impossible to properly teach this entire field in a few classes. I mean, if you take a look at four-year programs, they specialize in one area, yet community colleges try to teach everything at once. So we've decided we don't want to do that. We want to make sure that students aren't coming out just with very general information that is definitely helping them transfer to a four-year, but it's not helping them find employment. So we want to make sure that we're prepping them for both. We want them to find employment or transfer to a four-year if that's what they're interested in. So we are starting the first of our targeted programs. We're converting our kind of broad general animation program to 3D modeling for animation, game art, and visual effects. 3D modeling, just very briefly, is the creation of characters and creatures and assets and environments, basically everything that you're going to animate, everything you're going to watch, to all the different set pieces. And the reason we've chosen that is because it is one of the most accessible. Students, even with very low-powered computers at home, can take part in this. And on top of that, it's one of the most practical entry points in all three of those industries, in addition to allowing entry into working in animatronics, working in toy design, working in jewelry design, working in designing collectibles, as well as designing for graphic novels. And I could go on and on there. So this is a new program. We're still in the process of getting this all the way through. However, the classes have already been completed and have already been approved. So students that are still in the current animation program can actually still take, or not still, they can already take these new classes to help round out their skill sets as they start to look for their first job. Cool. So, and one of the really, really cool things, and I can't take credit for any of this because when I came here, Iris and I'm just saying Iris now, but it's a lot of people too, had already built this amazing digital makerspace at Crafton Hills College. And I've gotten the chance to come in now and just play with it. It is an absolutely amazing experience. We have a two-part system that you don't see at many colleges. Usually it's a makerspace where you can physically make things. We have that digital makerspace that offers high-end computers with every software you could possibly imagine that's going to allow people to design whatever they want for all of those different fields that we mentioned. And then they can go to the next room over and start making use of industry-standard 3D printers, both stereolithography and fused filament. The little Roadrunners you're receiving now were designed in our makerspace, both in the digital makerspace for the design and on our fused filament printers. And one of the really cool things, I think, is our new digital sculpting and 3D modeling program I just mentioned is completely designed around using this makerspace so that when students come out, not only do they have those digital-based skill sets, but they can also now enter the field in rapid prototyping and low-level manufacturing as well. So, and what we have here now is a video showcasing all of the amazing things that we're very proud of in our school, the Makerspace, and in our Center for Digital Media.
I'm Steven Prater, and originally I'm from Chino Hills, California, but now I'm located in Moreno Valley. My first gig as in the industry, I was working as a PA for MTV's Wild 'N Out, so I worked a couple seasons on that. I worked on something in Comedy Central called Charlemagne the God. This is in its, I think, second season now, but I got to work on that. FTVM, it prepared me because I had the education or like the knowledge when it comes to like how to apply things, like how to do certain things out in the field, and even some of the practical like hands-on things that we do here in class, even as something smallest things in terms of like I'm Steven Prater, and originally I'm Steven Prater, and originally I'm from Chino. I'm Steven Prater, and originally I'm Steven Prater, and originally I'm from Chino Hills, California, but now I'm located in Moreno Valley. My first gig as in the industry, I was working as a PA for MTV's Wild 'N Out, so I worked a couple seasons on that. I worked on something in Comedy Central called Charlemagne the God. This is in its, I think, second season now, but I got to work on that. FTVM, it prepared me because I had the education or like the knowledge when it comes to like how to apply things, like how to do certain things out in the field, and even some of the practical like hands-on things that we do here in class, even as something smallest things in terms of like
Okay.
So real quick, this is the data from Crafton's multimedia program. And during the pandemic, I know most of you know we've had a decline overall, but the multimedia program was able to have an increase in FTEs, a 23% increase overall, which is really telling about the program.
Yeah, so this again is data showing our FTEs. We've gone up since 2018. It's about a 40% increase on both the full-time enrolled and the number of students that have gone through the program. I credit this we had some really good industry contacts that through the pandemic, just transparency, a good friend of mine is the location manager, and he was on the committee with Hollywood as they were coming up with safety standards for COVID protocols. And I think along with our administration at the campus to really work with us to make sure it is important, like they were saying, I'm not only getting them ready for USC, but I'm getting them ready for the set. And as Stephen was trying to talk about, he went from graduation right to work. And so it was important that we kept up that. And I think overall, when I kind of surveyed things, I noticed that a lot of local other programs weren't, we kept going. We had full lab classes through the pandemic, utilizing iPads, we have a cloud-based checkout system for equipment, so we could track equipment as it's going in and out. We were able, through the height of the pandemic, to even meet one day a week, following those protocols that Hollywood gave us. So I think there's that, and then also we have a part-time media person who's actually an alumni from the department too, who's helped us out in social media and created that presence there. So I think those things and our partnerships with the local high schools really helped to keep our numbers moving up, even through the pandemic.
Yeah, I want to comment on our enrollment as well. I think a lot had to do with our plan was always that we want to have access to technology and that students don't have to have their own great equipment in order to succeed in these classes. And because we had this in the plan from the beginning, the pandemic didn't hit us as hard as other programs because we were ready for it. We were ready to have students have access to technology if they don't have the money for it. And now they really needed it, and we were ready for it. And I think our accreditation team was also really impressed that we had that already in the pipeline. As mentioned, we also include freelance opportunities. That's that data that's a little bit harder to get than employment opportunities. Christina agrees there with me. But what we see in umbrella terms, we have regional openings for web designers, multimedia in general. The graphic arts are going back up, especially with special skills. Digital marketing, if it's called as such, is coming up. And then in game development, we are actually more planning on remote opportunities than local opportunities in those fields. Our plan has always been to prepare for those jobs that make a really good living wage. And so these are just some benchmark numbers so you can see where our students can go after they completed our programs in this bigger term as multimedia artists and animators, which also includes making dragons and monsters. Art directors is a little bit hard to measure in terms of education. You cannot become an art director by degree. That's something that happens after a few years in the field. But we get people ready because we have experience, all three of us. We've worked in the industry, and we all taught in four-year schools, so we know the difference. We had a lot of guidance from our dean, who has worked in very similar programs, both in two-year and in four-year schools, and so we are very confident to say, yes, our students, they can become art directors. We're not just here for the entry-level people. So, game development, also, it's an umbrella term. It includes a lot of game assets, and game assets is something that we are really good at teaching.
So, if you weren't sure, film and TV is kind of a big economic sector in the state of California. Last thing I saw, where I pulled some data from, is it's number 2 in the state. And now it's not just in Hollywood, as we know. We're all on devices, and we all get from small businesses here in the area that are looking for video content for social media platforms to, Stephen was talking about in the video. He's worked on big sets, but then we have people here locally that are working at Running Camera Ontario Convention Center. Recently, we've got a full-time placement over at Yamava and their new event center. They're running camera and doing things there. So it's not just an hour or so away, it's here locally as well. But I think it also begs the question we're showing that we have the infrastructure to how do we start drawing and developing the economics for it to come more here versus skipping us and going to Albuquerque, New Mexico like it has. So we're not only here locally but in LA, but I think there's opportunity to really kind of develop this as another entertainment spot to be. Again, as I like to say, I think, and I've heard other faculty say this, you go to college to get a career. You go to college to find a vocation, to find your passion, and to find your strengths. And in doing so, you're gonna do better no matter what the degree is, right? So these are just some of the numbers. They're always more high-paying jobs than most things that we have in the region. I'd also point out that. With that in mind, that we have these positions, and there's just an example of it. Like I said, because media is everywhere, it kind of, public relations maybe 15 years ago wasn't doing video, but now they're doing video. Now you're doing your own podcast. So it's out there. It's kind of everywhere.
So as we begin to look at the connections with the efforts that are being done by the faculty, one of the things that we always are looking at is how are we aligning these efforts with the larger Vision for Success goals. And I'm excited about these courses. I want to take these courses, and I'm just thinking, when can I fit these courses? And you really see the passion in the faculty, and really that's what drives us to develop these innovative programs. Our faculty are looking beyond what jobs are available now and looking into the future for the jobs that don't exist, and preparing our students to enter into those jobs, into careers. So the Chancellor's Office is really interested in aligning all of those efforts, and as Vice Chancellor, Executive Vice Chancellor Torres mentioned, our strategic plan really aligns with the Guided Pathways efforts, our key results, our objectives, and it goes beyond the mapping. You'll see the key results that say we're mapping this. It really goes beyond that and really looking at what's going to lead the student from the scheduling of the courses to completion to employment. And really looking at engaging the faculty as being the core to those designs. We want to make sure that the Chancellor's Office refers to student-centered learning and preparation and integration. And so the next few slides will begin to talk about how we're integrating everything collectively to ensure that students are maximizing their learning, but that we're also aligning our vision for success and our goals to maximize their opportunities.
Good afternoon, everyone. Tony Papa, Director of Operations, KVCR. Good to see you all again. So this gets into my slides for KVCR on behalf of this group. What a great job they did presenting everything that they've got going on with the colleges. But now how do we align, right? The first step is obviously student involvement with KVCR, and this slide tells the 7 different ways that we do it. Paid internships are currently going on right now. It was one of the first key things that working with Lucas right there at Valley that we wanted to do was figure out how to bring paid internships in. Right now we have 4 paid internships. We started last spring, and we have 4 paid interns that will go from with us now until the end of June. The exciting thing that we had to do was figure out a process for it. So working with the dean of the program as well as Lucas, we figured out an equitable process of how to go through and have KVCR staff members interview candidates that come through that are already screened actually by the student coordinator that Lucas has at the team, and then we are able to bring them on. Paid internships is number 1. Volunteers. We have volunteer forms that are on the KVCR website, so if students want to volunteer with us, they certainly can, and they can be a part of any project that we have going on. It is one way to come in and work with us at KVCR. Unpaid internships are very similar to volunteers, but it's really just student involvement on a more regular basis, specific to projects that they want to be a part of. So last spring, we had 2 unpaid students who were a part of it. And this upcoming fall, I believe we have another 2 that have expressed interest in just being part of KVCR. Class and lab hours. I'm going to go into a little bit more in another slide about the classes and the lab hours that are currently available there. But they do have the opportunity to tour and visit and come in at any point and be a part of KVCR. I think another important thing when you see on there, say, tour, Lucas has been really good at bringing in either high schools or elementary schools, or we've been approached by schools that are not necessarily college students that want to see the facility. So we've worked together about how to bring them in and basically get them to see the media facility in action. Federal work study, right now we have 2. We worked with the DSO, the HR department, in order to post a need, which our need was graphic design. So we run it through HR. They then work with the campuses to make sure students are aware of it, and we bring on work study students. They have no media training, but they are students. They are wide open, eye open when they came in. They've been with us now for 2 weeks. And you're starting to see the light bulb go off on the opportunity that maybe this is a pathway that I want to be a part of. We had the great opportunity to bring 2 of our work-study students to a recent community event, the Mitla Cafe, which was the Lopez versus Sacom case. And they got to hold slates, they got to participate, and they got to see us actually in action. And it was really neat for them, I think. One of them has actually drafted up a write-up, and we'll present that at a later date. Media arts and work experience is another opportunity to work with us if they don't make it through the paid internship opportunity. There's 2 classes. The one I've listed here is 098, and this class is basically for credit. That you would be able to participate. If you took the class through Lucas's program, you could then come in for credit. I think earlier in one of the slides I saw 198, and 198 is something that Lucas has designed in order for it to be transferable. So you have 2 choices. 098, you're a part of the program, you get some credits, or 198, you can have it and be part of your transferable units. Student pools and KVCR projects it has really been beneficial when working with Crafton. Last spring, and you're going to see some examples of this later in the slides, but last spring, when bringing on Crafton, we tried to determine, well, how could we do it? And Iris right away said, I want to interview you, and I want to interview Lillian, and I want to bring it into the classes. And what we want to do is we want to have you as professionals explain to the students what your desire and what you're looking for in projects, and then I'll incorporate it into my training. That happened, and we actually got great success. We'll show you in a minute about how that worked. We're doing that again this year. Also for Valley, the art department is going to be working with Lillian on some marketing graphics that we'll be doing. Same thing, class projects. So we'll be integrated in with their projects for the upcoming year. Next slide. About 100 students from the IMA program at any given point have been filtering in and out of the building, which has been neat to see coming out of the pandemic, obviously. KVCR staff is interacting with them, holding the door, welcoming them, pointing in a direction. I had the great privilege of actually pointing the direction to a student and a parent on their first day and talked to them a little bit about being in the building. But there are a large number of students that are flowing in and out of the building as we speak today. Doors are open all day long during the week. 11 class hours. So there's 3 classes currently going on that we have had the ability to work with Lucas and his team about being a part of. The way we do that is we have an Outlook calendar. I don't know if it's on a future slide, but I'll just talk about it. We devised a calendar. That was one of the first things we said, right, is how are we going to all live in this environment together? Well, we need a scheduling system. So if the classes need additional time from those 11 hours, they book it out. If there's students that need time, they book it out. It helps us with our planning. It helps Lucas and his classes have a regular time that they're allowed to be in and be working in there, and everybody works. Internships that I mentioned, the paid ones, are up to 60 hours a week with our 4 interns right now. So that's about 15 hours per student. With the work study, they can do 15 to 20 hours, so you'll see there on the next bubble that right now our 2 work study students at a maximum we're up to 20 hours. Post-production lab is the room that I've always shown some of you if you've ever been over there at KVCR. It's a really neat room with multiple computers, fully integrated in. That space was designed early on in the modernization to be a full kind of working lab space, really for anyone. Originally maybe journalists, but in this case it's now becoming students, KVCR journalists, interns, consultants. It's really a multimedia space that anybody can go in there and kind of integrate with. Our future plans are certainly to grow more classes in there, to have KVCR professionals working in there when they are available. But if you know where it is, it's on the west side of the building, in the back of the building. It will be getting upgraded soon, and it'll be accessible. Access. I kind of hinted to it, but at the end of the day, the studio's available in access. We have one large project going with our county schools that will be utilizing the space 2 days a week for green screen. And the rest of the time, students are free-flowing and able to go in there and shoot projects if they need to. They work with KVCR staff members on equipment if they need to, or the lab tech that's also part of IMA, or any of the faculty. Conference room. We have a kind of a neat conference room over there. We have white walls all over the place. You can get on there and get creative and draw. I know Lucas has held a screenwriting class in there, and we've also invited cross-departmental meetings. So we're sharing other parts of the space in the KVCR building to help with overall success. Student projects. This has been neat to see them in action for me. And kind of watch as they've filtered throughout the building. We did have a student film shot in the lobby. We've had student projects shot outside the building. So they're really utilizing the space, and I wanted to make sure everybody knew that as they create, they're using the space. They do, of course, communicate with our Admin 3 assistant. This time it's Gina Guerrero. The reason being is that we don't want to walk through their scene. If you were to shoot a scene at a mall, you would have to have it locked down. So basically, you would have one person on either side of your set. You would lock it down so people aren't walking through. So they're able to shoot and utilize the space by communicating to us, and then there's some additional skills that will say, hey, well, you've got to put up signage, or you've got to talk about not having staff walk through your shot. All of this takes a dedicated staff to coordinate on our end, a CSEA member and a KVCR staff member. The reason being primarily is because there's a lot of coordination with paperwork to bring them on. There's a lot of coordination with scheduling. So I've been fortunate enough to have one of our staff members kind of take that on. This slide is really about the monthly meetings. And the reason being, it was vital, and I recognized it early on and went to Lucas in one of our parking lot meetings and said, we need to do something regularly. We need to meet on a monthly basis. We need to be able to bring in KVCR staff or your staff members, and we need to just talk about what we want to get done and what we want to accomplish. So this was the first thing we did. We started this over a year ago, I think, about a year and a half ago, and we have an agenda kind of every month. It's a loose agenda. We kind of keep it, we memorialize it, we then circulate it back out so we know what we've kind of agreed upon, but it's how we solve problems. And the neat thing about it is that we've invited the deans, both Van and Leticia, for Crafton and for Valley, participate in it, so we can kind of go up the food chain if we need support on anything. But at the end of the day, it's where we got a lot done. About 2 months after doing it with Valley, I called up Iris and I said, hey, Iris, we need to do this too. We need to have monthly meetings. We need to make sure that we're on the same page. And it's where we design the internships. It's where we design the class projects. It's where we talk about how we can contribute and work together. That coordination is what will make this special going forward. It really started there. It started as a safe place to kind of talk about how to make this work for students and have student success. The poster that is there is Local Valley, which is part of the programming that is played on KVCR. I think early in the strategic planning, there was a lot of discussion about, hey, would the student content get on the television? Would it get out on the airwaves? And it does. It does have to hit broadcast standards. So one of the things that Lucas and I have talked about, and I think is taking place soon, is Ben Holland, our program manager, will be meeting with their class to talk about closed captioning, to talk about audio levels and some of the broadcast standards. Local Valley was one of the first projects, and with that, I pass it to Lucas.
Thanks, Tony. So coming up is last spring we finished 6 episodes of a music show called Rhythm Lounge in the studio featuring local bands here in the Inland Empire. As he said, we're just finishing up the technical, waiting on KVCR approval before those drop. They're half-hour shows. And then we also have in the works right now 2-hour dramas that were written, produced, and edited by our students. It's kind of a passion of mine. Harkens back to early TV where you had Westinghouse Studio One would do their hour drama. So it's kind of that thing. But if you look at it on a career development path, everybody we know now from Hollywood got their start on those shows. So to me, this brings that type of training, that creative narrative training right here in San Bernardino. This can be a place where I talk to theater majors at Cal State all the time, like, now what? I'm like, well, why don't you come act on one of our shows, right? Get on TV. So we're really excited about that. Coming up soon, that we're going to start production in very soon, is this kind of travel show featuring local restaurants here in the IE called Go Local Lee. What's really special about that, we were able to bring some of our funding in to help make that happen. So we're bringing 2 alumni back to be kind of showrunners on it. Then we have 3 department interns that are working on it as working alongside them. So what I always saw and what we're hoping that this launches as on an annual basis is you get out of school, because I had this happen. Well, now what? Film school was really fun. Now what do I do? Well, now we can give you a place to get some money in your pocket and actually build up your credits. So we're doing that, turning the IMA in kind of a production company. And then the course is listed there and how we're utilizing and kind of talked about. Again, the students can't get into his internships without getting through our classes first. That's a requirement. We've established that. It's a formal structure. I borrowed from some of the best, like Disney, and that's what they do. When I used to coordinate internships with them, like there was a process to it, and that's what we've kind of modeled it after.
So what we see on our side is the examples that we have produced last spring. And the picture that you just saw on the previous slide, Loco Valley, that's a collaboration that Lucas and I had 3 years ago, where our students were working on the logo design in one class.
Sketch comedy.
For the sketch comedy show, and on the poster in the other class, and that's where we developed this great remote format. So Lucas came and spoke to our students on video, and they got the briefing, and they worked on it, and they produced, and they got feedback from actually your entire team working on that. They were very rough.
Yeah, no, it was before the shutdown. It was the first time I think we used Zoom. So we had practiced before everybody else
we
did.
had a lot of practice before. So this format was very successful, and you're like, okay, this works. We're going to do the same thing as KVCR. We will bring in the client, Tony or Lillian, and we are recording an interview. Those were remote classes, so we're very proud of that we can get this time and space problem solved so quickly and easily. We working in several classes now with KVCR. We have increased the timeline. In spring, we did it in 2 weeks. This term, we're going to do it in 3 weeks. So we have a little bit more time for feedback and incorporating the feedback. And that's one of the biggest learning goals, and that's so important for our students to get, and that is revision. In the creative industries, everything needs to be revised many, many times. And that's the reality shock that they usually get on their first job. What, you don't love what I just made here? You want me to change it? Yes, we want you to change it. And that's a message they usually don't get from us as professors. We're just the mean people. But when it comes from the client, it's the real thing. And that's where that learning happens. And that's really so important. And the students also really appreciate that.
I'm excited to be a client, I will admit. But Iris is 100% right. We look forward to training and constructive criticism would be the way we would say it. I want to take this opportunity before we go into these slides to talk about how important what we've just learned, right? At the end of the day, you have a program that's what I would call boots on the ground. They're behind cameras, they're working, they're right next door to us, they're building content, we're distributing that content. But you also have a program that's doing all of the neat graphics and art and design and all of the things that we need to put together to build a really comprehensive piece of content. So when I talked to both Iris and Lucas, I've said there's so much value between the three of us, right? At the end of the day, one of you can go out and shoot it, one of you can, certainly make all the graphics and make it look good, and then combined, we can distribute it. And so that's really the triad, if you look at it from that standpoint. It also means internships can be in the building from Valley, but we can do digital internships with Crafton. I really want to be pushing towards that this year, right? We don't need students to physically be in the building, they need to deliver graphics so they can be remote. What we're showing you now here is some of the alignment with some of our
Hey, team, we're like half a minute up per slide.
Half a minute?
Half a minute per slide, yeah.
This is all the fun pictures. These are our interns in action. So we'll go ahead and just slide through these. Interns on the radio, interns editing promos for us. We had the opportunity to shoot Crafton's graduation. The two students on the left were at Meatlas this last week. Odin, up in the top right, was one of the great students that went on to UCLA. Really dynamic individual. Next slide. I'm ahead of you now. Here is all the action that is taking place as they're actually working on KVCR projects behind the camera. The bottom left, you see a KVCR member just kind of going through some of the cameras on some of the early first days when working with the interns. They already know the basics. Now we just talk to them about the program. So we wanted to show you some actual live photos of interns in progress with us. Next slide. As Iris and I have spoken about, the class project that we did, every student got a chance to develop a piece of artwork that would go out in one of our member newsletters. We have up to almost 10,000 members, so we communicate with them on a regular basis. We gave them a concept. They went through and drafted it. Then they submitted. The KVCR staff then voted on it. We chose our winning one, which was this one. And as you see on the right-hand side, it got delivered in a newsletter. So it was out in Practice. Also, a big future for us will be digitally pushing some of our wares. In this case, it was live stream. So another class, what I had asked for is, can we create an animated GIF and promote our live stream? And same process kind of happened here. So between the photos of the boots on the ground of students working and the digital side of the students working, these last few slides gave you an opportunity to see how they're working with us.
So then, what's next? What do we do from here? What does our future look like? What is the vision that we're going to continue working with the Inspiring Possibilities plan that you approved? Again, there are 3 strategic directions, and within each strategic directions, we have added different action items that we're going to accomplish within the next couple of years, 2 to 3 years. So you'll see in here with strategic direction number 1, online KVCR with the media academies. We want to make sure that we increase student involvement. We want to continue supporting media academies with curriculum feedback. Any feedback that we have, we're going to give it to them. Hire a lab technician and hire a network specialist. We need to reconfigure the post-production room. Tony mentioned it, to a student lab classroom so that they can best be able to spend more time in the class that Lucas mentioned as well. That is at 4 universities, so we want to make sure that the spaces are available. We're going to build a storage space, which is part of the plan. You already approved the plan, and we're going to build that storage space to make sure that we increase the studio capacity as well, open it up a little bit more, and build a second studio. That's a little bit more long-term, mid to long-term, but it's a build a second studio as well, that we need to make sure that we continue to do this. We want to continue opening up the studio to the community, but as we open up the studio community, there will be limited space, so therefore we need to start thinking bigger, and we need to start thinking as to how we're going to make sure that our students in our community and the great community efforts that we do take part in their studios at KVCR. So we want to make sure that we do that. And in regards to strategic direction number 2, ensure financial sustainability for KVCR, we are going to merge FNX fund into the KVCR fund. We need to get rid of that fund. We're not going to get rid of FNX. It's the FNX fund. It's an accounting thing. We used to separate it because we used to get high donations for FNX. We're not receiving that, so therefore it becomes easier just to manage it in one fund. But FNX, just make sure, clarify, FNX is not going away. It's just an accounting term, the fund itself. Okay? As you know, we have a federal grant. We are going to use the most restrictive grant first, which is the federal grant. We are going to hire a development director. You already hire an executive director. You already hire a director of operations. So our next one is a development director. We're going to identify new positions to meet the actions from strategic directions 1 and 2, because the current staffing levels that we have are not going to be sufficient. So we need to identify what new positions are going to be needed to make sure that we continue doing the great things that we need to continue those great things. We need to revise, I mentioned this to you at the budget presentation, we need to revise the fiscal year 22-23 budget and prepare a 5-year forecast to include the $15 million that we received from the state. And then we're going to create a board recommendation for the $15 million as well. continuing with this financial sustainability, we need to hire, again, the positions that were identified to continue doing the great things that we're going to be doing. We need to fundraise to pay for student interns. We want to continue expanding on those student interns. We know that that's not enough, but we have limited resources right now at the moment, so we're going to fundraise to continue paying and offering more paid student interns. We're going to fundraise for the second studio as well. We want to make sure that we fundraise for a mobile studio. We talked about being out there in the community a lot more, but in order for us to make it more feasible and easier to go to the community, we want to make sure that we have a mobile studio that is easy, transportable to different places. And we need to begin rebuilding relationships with local tribes as well. In regards to strategic direction number 3, provide TV and radio content relevant to the community. We need to continue offering PBS and NPR content. I mentioned build the mobile studio. Once we fundraise the money, then we'll build the mobile studio. Create content from colleges events. One of the things that we want to do, we want to be out there more in the colleges, covering the events that they have. We want to create news stories from that. Sometimes we see it in the Sun, sometimes we see it in other news venues, so we want to make sure that KVCR is part of those news articles as well. We need to create criteria for accepting guests, events, and shows at KVCR. I'm a big believer that once we open up KVCR, I think the flow in the community is going to start coming in, so we need to start creating that criteria. We need to continue attending important local events, such as the one we attended a couple weeks ago. We need to continue working with the media academies to develop student content. I think you heard that a little bit before today. How can we get student content to make sure that we utilize the great asset with KVCR? We need to evaluate the possibility of partnership with local media as well. If there are media out there already that exist, if there is content that exists and we can get it for free, why not get it? So we need to create those relationships as well. We need to evaluate the best possible way for the community to access our content as well. There are different ways. There's TV over the air, there's digital, you name it, an app, whatever it is. We need to start evaluating different ways of accessing for our community to access the content. We need to evaluate the creation of a local half-hour show. We need to evaluate the best structure for Inland Features Foundation. As you know, that foundation is dormant at the moment, so we need to start thinking about what's going to be the best structure. And we need to consider an advisory committee for KVCR that includes local community members as well. And then we need to create local ethnic content. And that is our presentation. Questions?
Thank you all.
Questions.
Thank you all. If I can just wrap up real quick. Our apologies for not being able to show the Valley College.
We have it for
Okay.
afterwards.
Yeah, so we will play it during the break so that folks can see it, and we will also send it out to all of the board members so that you can see it also. So our apologies for that. I think we have, Madam Chair, I think we do have a few minutes for questions before the next presentation.
We have
Madam Chair.
about 10 minutes for questions. John?
Yes, I wanted to just say what an extraordinarily good presentation this was. All in all, I've never been so pleased with a presentation related to KVCR during the 14 years that I've been on this board. And when I came to this board in 2008, one of my concerns was that as just a viewer and listener, I could see that by we, I mean this district, its trustees and staff, had allowed the condition and usage of KVCR to decline markedly from what it had been at one time.
Yeah.
And I saw the potential, I thought, to not only restore what had been once the case, but to even go beyond it. I saw a lot of potential in this station and or a combination of stations, this overall program, and I thought it would go faster. the 14-year number kind of is ironic. That was how long it took from when I first started working on the County Transportation Commission to create a commuter rail system connecting us to LA, and 14 years later when we began operation of Metrolink. So good things seem to take a while. But I'm just really, really impressed with the presentation. Jose, when you took over this, I had some reservations. I had not been persuaded that you saw the potential. You have all kinds of strengths that I admire tremendously. I did not see I did not think you saw the potential there. You saw it. It's clear here that with the staff that you've put together here, our chancellor has managed to coordinate this whole thing with just extraordinary work. I'm so pleased. I wanted to just comment on one of the things you said that I think needs an additional emphasis, and that is our connections with the indigenous folks and the potential for that growing much more than most people realize in countless ways. So that's a key connection there. I see us as, we are known right now, this district, for Valley College producing nurses that serve the whole state, and Chafee, Crafton Hills, God, I can't believe it. It's been a long time since I've done that. And Crafton Hills producing firefighters for the whole state. And I see the potential for both schools becoming eventually better known for what we're doing, creating right now, that the potential is so incredible. I'm just so excited, and this presentation can be adapted, I hope, for when we make it to the state to get a 4-year program instituted.
All right, thank you. Trustee Houston.
Thank you. That was incredible. I would just add to it, and it's really kind of a question, but more of just a comment. When we're talking about fundraising for internships, and I'm a words matter person, there's a ton of registered apprenticeship dollars out and available. And so just to the extent that we can leverage those dollars, and because the day job for me is the pre-apprenticeship piece and connecting those secondary programs to registered apprenticeships at the post-secondary level, would love to see us really go in that direction to help with that funding, because there's a ton of funding out there.
Any other questions?
Yes, please.
Trustee Versal.
Thank you. So, question on fundraising. We're hiring a development person. You mentioned 3 areas of fundraising that were going to occur. Is this part of that person's job?
It is part, yes, and including the executive director as well. Part of the job description of the executive director is to lead the development efforts, fundraising efforts, but also the development director will be the heavy person and the development itself, yes.
So we have a budget, or we will be developing a budget that they need to raise up to.
That is correct.
That's fabulous.
Yes.
That makes my heart happy.
Me too.
Thank you.
Trustee Reyes.
Well, thank you so much. That was very, very good. I've been here for 35 years. I can recall the telecommunication program we had was one of the best. We would send students to Long Beach State, UC, USC, and so forth. Our students were tops. We lost a lot of opportunities, and somehow we lost the connection of curriculum, students wanting to come here. This is going to actually, to be honest with you, I think this is going to put us in the map. And I think that with the leadership that we have now, because even though we spent a lot of money the last 5 years, 4 years, we were not going anywhere. I don't think we really didn't have the direction. I think we made some mistakes. I think those mistakes are we've learned from them, like John was saying. But I've also been a counselor, so I know that it's very complicated to have the communications with a 4-year college, especially you're talking about upper division classes. I don't know how you did that, but you need to be complimented, because that's really important. I can see our students, local students, once they find out, they're not going to want to go somewhere else. to begin with. They can say, why go to USC or why go to whoever has a great media program when they can go to a community college and get their first 2 years out of the way. I also want to compliment you in regards to understanding that in order for them to go into the upper division or the more advanced, you have to take prerequisites and co-requisites. Getting that organized, it takes a lot of time. So again, you've done a magnificent job. It's our responsibility now to go into the community and really sell it. And I think we can do that with the team that we have here. I disagree with my colleague, John Longbit. I always had confidence in Jose. Always had confidence. The man saved us millions of dollars in terms of the areas that he was very good in, which is the bonds and so forth. We didn't have the leader. Even our chancellor, the previous 3 or 4 chancellors, I've been here for a long time, Gloria and I, so I worked for 5 chancellors. They had no idea of what KVCR was. So now, it's really up to us, and with the leadership that Jose is going to give us, and the new executive director that we have, that's going to be part of, your responsibility is to make sure the curriculum is there. The responsibility that the new person that we're going to hire is fundraising, is getting federal grants, and Tony and I have talked about that. There's a lot of money, as Stephanie was saying. There's a lot of money. No one has what we have now in the media. So I'm very, very pleased, and I want to go after the federal funding on the
State funding.
state funding, but the federal funding. I mean, there's a lot of money, and and I expect we'll knock on $1 million is good, but it's not good enough with Congressman Pete Aguilar, because he can get us. He's in the appropriations committees. We just have to know how things work. With the new director we hired, we couldn't even be University of not a community college, but a University of San Bernardino, let's say. I know Cal State wouldn't like that, but anyway, we are very pleased, and I think that we are in the right direction. So I want to compliment our chancellor for putting this thing together and the team that is coming together.
Thank you. There aren't any other questions. I would like to just make a very brief comment. When I was a student at Valley College, one of the things that was an outstanding thing for me was 4th semester Spanish students. And we did a play on KVCR radio in Spanish. One of the pieces of literature that we were doing that worked out, it was a 1-act play. And so all of us took part in it, and many of our colleagues, many of our fellow students were working at KVCR, either behind cameras or doing the green room or doing whatever was required of them. And so it was very much a student place where we gathered to talk about the possibility of other plays in English and in Spanish that we could do. We were concentrating on radio at that time. And it was one of the best experiences that I ever had as a student at Valley College. And so we got away from that. And so I'm very happy to see the fact that we have this facility, this marvelous facility, that will create careers for people. In the early days, we had people who went to, and I can name them. One of them is still working for NBC, but started at CNN. Another one went to work as a weather person in San Diego. I mean, we have them all over the place. Some of them are now even retired. But they started at KVCR in the early days when we were basically just a radio station. But it was also a gathering place for students to exchange ideas. And it was very exciting, very exciting, very exciting. So I'm glad to see us put the emphasis on developing careers and processing students that will go out and make a name for themselves. I have to compliment the students who did the reenactment the other day at Meatless for the Lopez versus Secum. They did an excellent job. Everybody did an excellent job. I have to compliment all of you for the work that you did. It's unfortunate that we couldn't get it beyond that, because several people who attended said, we wish we had known more ahead of time. We would have had it streamed into our classrooms, because the presentation was so good. But I'm sure that we have it on tape, right? And so it also created a lot of partnerships with the community, and that got to know who we were, and that was excellent. So hopefully we will be doing more of this. I'm very excited about the curriculum. I'm very excited about the fact that even though it's small numbers at this point, that it will grow and be something of great value, not only to San Bernardino, our own service area, but beyond that we will be a provider of people who are professionals, who will become professionals in the industry at all levels, at all levels. The only thing I saw missing was journalism.
It's there. We just launched news broadcasting class this year.
Okay, yeah, thank you.
Madam, one of the great things...
We're almost out of time.
It's $20 million it's worth. One of the things that, how we're going to be able to justify the $20 million that we got is exactly what you're talking about, Gloria, is getting the community involved to participate in this reenactment that happened in meat class. It was, not everybody was invited. You can't. It was limited. And the people that went were very impressed. And we're going to be able to justify the fact that it is community civil engagement and so forth. They're already planning to do another one for, I think, the Korean or the, so we're meeting the needs of the $20 million that we have to justify it and sort of be good. So it's very, very good. And I expect a lot more things, and all of you being part of that. And we're there to help in any way that we can. We just have to get you the resources. That's where we need to come in. Because this thing about public relation and all that, it's good. I buy that. But without the money, we can't do anything. We couldn't, without the $20 million, we couldn't have done this. So always keep that in mind. Always keep that in mind. Without the resources, we could do nothing.
I was going to give everybody a 5-minute break, but we talked too long, I'm sorry. We all got excited about this whole process. So we are going to break for 2 minutes and then come back and continue with the agenda.
Madam Chair, we'll show the video while the break is happening, but also I just want to acknowledge this behind you. Letitia, if you don't want to introduce yourself and then go from that direction, I just want to make sure that they get a credit as well, because they have a lot to work on this in the background as well. It's just as myself will work on the background, but they're the boots on the ground. They're the ones that make things happen. They're the great things that you can see, but over there it's also as well. Roger, do you mind playing the video, please, while we're on break?
Great job. Very good. Go downtown two blocks away from. Yeah, but it's just so different when I come here.
So glad you're
Oh, well, we care about this so much. I was so excited. I was thinking, we could talk at the well, so, okay, that's pretty good. I don't think I've been
Like I said before, the program here and the equipment that we have, it gives us the experience before we even touch a camera, like in the real field, like out there. So I definitely would say that this program does put us ahead. It gives us like an edge because of all the stuff that we have here, plus the professors and even the students here as well.
Some of the credits I have so far obviously wouldn't have been done without the program and the people in it. I have a stunt double credit and an audio engineer credit for the film American Boogie Woman, which is on Netflix, and it's directed by Daniel Ferentz. I also have a couple of IMDb credits for films and web series that were actually created here within the program. So I have learned a lot of skills within the program, like how to set up cameras and how to operate the cameras. So, and that helped prepare me to work with KVCR, where we do get to work with a lot of cameras. Like recently, I think a couple months ago, we were live streaming and recording a graduation for Crafton Hills. So without the help of the program and everything that I've learned here, I would not have been able to take that with me along to KVCR. We've done so many projects and we've got to experiment with so many different production roles that we're learning to create something we're proud to be a part of.
Okay, as long as you're happy, I'm happy. And I'm gonna be the happy.
I can't get rid of the students. They're always there, which is great because
break, sort of. And I'd like to welcome our facilitators. I'm so glad you're back. Thank you so much. And turn it over to the Chancellor to lead the discussion.
Thank you very
with
much.
the facilitators?
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. We're just going to go ahead and jump right in since we're
We only have
running
one.
behind
Just you?
schedule. Joining us here is Dr. Mitch Hovey. You may remember him from our previous meetings where he guided the board through their self-evaluation in July 11th, actually. And so now in your packet, we have the results of that evaluation, and he's going to walk us through some thoughts, comments, and a bit of an analysis. So, Dr. Hovey.
Thank you. Let me say, I know we don't have lots of time, but I'm really, really pleased to be back and just honored to be a part of this process with you. Dick, by the way, Dick Bray is the one that's worked with you on the self-eval, but I just want you to know that he is on his way to Texas to be with his grandkids. This is something more important than that. So go be with your grandkids. I'll do this. So he and I worked really hard to put together this presentation. You should have a couple of things. You should have the full report, which is the Survey Monkey, which has the comments and all the things in it. We're going to focus more on the overall summary report, which looks like this. Except mine has colors. It doesn't have colors. And then we're going to focus on this PowerPoint, which what we really did is there were 42 indicators, if you remember, part of the board self-eval, 42 governance indicators.
So the summary report looks like
This
this?
is the summary, right?
Yep,
Right,
okay.
That's what we'll start with. So basically, we started this process, this is, I think, the second time we've done it. And we met June 27th and 28th, where we took the self-eval. And all 7 members completed the self-eval for the 21-22 school year. And if you remember, there were 42 governance indicators. You all had some questions, and there were some concerns about maybe this question was a yes or no question. This question could have been combined with something. I want you to know that we've taken that input, and we've actually revised that questionnaire, and we've cut it from 42 to 39 indicators, so we cut 2 questions out, but we've actually been able to combine them. So, and then we've also rearranged the sections so it made more sense, because it didn't seem like section 1, it didn't seem like it was sensible to start with section 1. So we've revised it, and when we come back in June, we're going to give you the revised indicator thing. And the good thing about that is we've also been able to use SurveyMonkey. So next time, you won't have to write it out. Next time, we're going to have you just take it on your computer. And the good thing about that is you can take it one day, we'll take it, look at it that night, and come back the next day to share the results with you. So it's going to be a lot more efficient. But we wanted to thank you because it was with your input we were able to revise it and make it a little bit more up-to-date and a little bit more meaningful and purposeful. But bottom line was on the survey that you took, there were 42 indicators, with 1 being never, 2 being seldom, 3 being often, and 4 most of the time. Now this is another thing we got from you, most of the time or always. So remember there was some question about is it always 100%? So we changed that to make it most of the time or always. I think the key thing, because I want to spend most of the time on the PowerPoint, is if you look at this chart, this gives you sort of a bird's eye view on the summary report. Looks sort of like this. It's the second page in. It gives you sort of a bird's eye view of the ratings that you had as a team in 2021 and the ratings that you had the last time, which was 2022. And you can see that in section 1, which was board chancellor relations, section 2, which is the board meetings, section 3, which is board community relations, and section 4, which is board qualities, very much the same. And the good thing is that we didn't really have anybody rate anything 1 or 2. Basically, it was either 3 or a 4, which is really, really outstanding. Because there are some boards, we get someone thinks they're here, and others think they're there. You were really consistent as a board. What we wanted to highlight, just called your attention, if you look at section 5, the board in service, in 2021, we averaged out 3.21, 2022, 3.5. Policy development, 3.47, 2022, 3.81. And then goal setting and planning, I think that was the biggest thing. Goal setting and planning, I think you thought, hey, we're not really there. We haven't really been doing what we think we've been needing to do in 2021. But look at the score at 3.49 at 2022. So you can see that basically there was a good growth in particularly those three sections, section 5, 6, and 7. Real quickly, the results from what Dick and I looked at and talked about really reflect a very veteran and cohesive board. You really have it together, because we don't see this with a lot of boards. So very veteran, very cohesive. Basically, the spread on the ratings on most of those indicators was very tight. You were really close with what you said, either a 3 or a 4, almost all the way through. There were 5 indicators that were only rated by 6. I'm on page 3 of the summary report. There were 5 indicators that were only rated by 6 board members, and 1 that was rated by only 5 board members. And Dick and I talked about, well, why did not everybody respond to some of those questions? And we thought, most likely it was because there was some confusion, or there was a misunderstanding about what was that question really asking for. And that's what prompted us to go back and say, we need to revise the self-eval, so it's a little bit more consistent. So we think, it's not because, we don't believe it's because someone didn't want to answer it. We believe because there was some confusion, there was some misunderstanding about what was that question really asking for. The 3 indicators with the lowest rating, 3.14, and again, 3.14 out of a scale of 4 is not bad. But those were the lowest ones. The board avoids infringing on the chancellor's area of responsibility, which was section 1, number 2. The board follows agreed upon procedures in communicating with the staff, section 1, question number 3. And the board keeps abreast of educational issues by attending educational workshops that encompasses the local, regional, and national levels. That was section 5, question number 2. What I wanted to say is that these indicators were low, but they were all higher, a little bit higher than just the opposite. So closing thoughts, our thoughts was, as we looked at it, it basically demonstrates a very commendable board, a lot of unity, a lot of good things going on. The most significant growth, obviously, was in section 7, goal setting and planning, which saw a huge improvement from 2.82 in 2021 to 3.49 this last year. And as I've said, because of the input we received, because I don't think we had changed that board self-eval instrument for about 8 years, so it was really good. Your input really caused us to go back and look at it and say, is it really asking what we need to ask? And is it really something that's meaningful for the board when you get the results back? So it made it necessary for our team to review the wording and descriptions, and as such, we're going to bring you we're going to prepare, and we've already been working on it. In fact, we looked at it together as a team, and we're anxious to bring it back to you in June. And then have you take it electronically, and then we'll look at it and bring it back for the next day. So we're not waiting 2 or 3 months to give you results. We're doing it almost instantaneously. So with that being said, let me spend most of our time focusing on this PowerPoint. And what I wanted to say is there were 42 indicators, and as I looked at the results, I'm thinking if we go through 42 indicators, one at a time, we're going to be here till midnight. So what I said, Diana, we got to cut this down. I said, can you look at the 42 indicators results and maybe focus on some of the ones that you think might be the most meaningful for discussion and or reflection. So we were able to narrow that down to 10 questions, which is what you have in your packet with the black thing there. Mine is broken down. I've got 3 slides on the page, and you almost need a microscope to see it. But yours is 1 on the page. You've got it framed. That's the right one, right? It's that one, yes. Like I said, mine's different because I put it on 3, but we want to make sure you can see it. So I can't see it, but at least it gives me an idea of the order. But I wanted to start, first of all, if you go to the already done this one. Go back. I wanted to start, just give you some, I'm not going to read this, but I did want to call our attention that you've been together for nearly 100 years. And in August 2021, you selected an outstanding leader, Diana Rodriguez, as your new chancellor. With the support of the board and the leadership team, you've been able to put together a 5-year strategic plan, which is this. And I'm just amazed by what was done, by what you shared at the retreat. In fact, I'm amazed by what was presented tonight, and I want to go home and tell my grandkids when they get older, because I want my grandkids in that program. I mean, you're just doing some amazing things. I'm just in awe of all the great things you're doing. Bottom line is you were able to develop and adopt a strategic plan. You came up with a mission of serving all students in the Inland Empire to reach their educational goals. And that's very evident tonight, just one of the many programs that you have that you're already working on. And then on June 27th and 28th, there was a 2-day board retreat. That's when you took the self-eval. As you looked back and reflected on the 2021-22 school year, using that self-assessment instrument that we developed and that we revised with your input, and you know there were 42 governance indicators. The information that came from the self-eval was reviewed by Dick and I, And we put together this summary of findings, which I just sort of highlighted for you real quickly. And as a part of the summary report, we designed and we looked at 10 questions that were highlighted that we could present and go through because we felt those were at the crux of where the discussion were. Some are basically kudos, so we're not going to take time to discuss all 5. Some are just reflective thoughts. Some are, hey, here's a question, what do you guys think, and just have some interaction. Next slide. So question number 2, which is in section 1.2. Avoids infringing on the chancellor's area of responsibility. You know, when you talk about that, you think about that, you think about the word micromanagement. I should say, micromanagement, it happens all the time. The good thing about what we see here is there may be some micromanagement, but the board is quick to recognize that. Where boards are getting in trouble is you've got micromanagement happening from the board where they want to run everything, and that's where you have high turnover rate of your leaders. So there's no real structure that we can find in place that's designed to consistently reinforce the boundaries of each role related to governance and management. The best thing we could find was what was done by Campbell and Fullen. The best definition we could find is that governance is steering the boat and management is rowing it. So basically you're providing direction while your leadership team is doing the heavy lifting. They're the ones doing the rowing. So the question is where are you, or where do you feel you are as a board relative to defining who steers and who rows? Just a question, just a thought. Where are you as a board to define? How do you know who steers and who rows? How do you do it so that you're functioning as a board, you're providing the what, and you're allowing Diana and her team to do the leading, to do the why, the where, the when, the how. So as a thought, where are you as a board relative to knowing who steers and who rows?
Define the where are you.
Say it again?
Define where are you.
Where are you today? Do you feel as though there's micromanagement? Do you feel as though you do a pretty good? I mean, basically when you look at it, you've got one person that basically said seldom. You've got 4 that said often. You've got 2 that said always. So there's a little bit of diversity of thought here.
I think if you were to ask that question now, it'd be very different from when we had that retreat. I saw something the other day where they were asking for volunteers for a committee for the water district. And what they did was to define the role of the committee member. This is what your job is. This is what your responsibility is. And I think we've been doing that as a board, defining who we are. And we are not getting in the weeds. We're not getting in the weeds. I personally do not call somebody directly, at least I try not to, go through the chancellor, even if it's stupid stuff. Yeah, even if it's something that really shouldn't be her role to do. I'm not going to the person in technology to take care of it for me. I go through her first. And then if she says, contact so-and-so, I do it. But I think we finally are at that point where all of us are doing that. We're going to the chancellor and saying, this, and who do you suggest I, and then she says, talk to Vice Chancellor so-and-so or Vice Chancellor so-and-so, and they will take care of that for you. But we have communicated to her, even though it's something minuscule.
I think we've been stacking our skill set just a bit as well. If you think about when we had Speed of Trust,
Yeah.
right, and we were doing that, we did that together. You all did it first as your leadership team, and then we got to do it later. And I think we're building the trust, and with that, the role of whoever's steering versus whoever's rowing, there's more comfort. I think, especially for the people who've been around and have done the jobs that you all do, I think they're getting a lot more comfortable not rowing anymore.
Yeah, who wants to row anyway? It's hard work.
So I think we're getting there. I think we're making a lot of progress.
And I know Jose earlier used the word boots on the ground. You were boots on the ground. Whereas if you if you're flying that airplane from the board's perspective, you're that 50,000-foot view. And it's really easy sometimes for boards to want to get into the weeds because, you know, you feel, I think I can help and I don't know it's going to get taken. But when you talk about building the culture of trust, and you know you can pick up the phone and talk to Diane and just say, hey, I hear you, here's who you should talk to, then you've got a well. And like I said, as we're working with boards throughout the county, we're seeing different boards at different levels. Some are total micromanagers and some are totally in the weeds. And when you look at the history of the leaders of that district, people are turning over quickly, high rate of turnover. Whereas compared to here, you know, it's different. And the thing that I said earlier, as far as good boards or great boards see when that's happening, they're knowledgeable of it, they recognize it, and they take care of it. And that's because you're really building a culture of trust. And you really have to say, you really have an outstanding leader, and you've got an outstanding team of support people that are working together. So I think you've built that culture of trust. But again, just a thought, just a question, a thought for discussion. Anything more on that one?
Well, I think it was stated, we had some concerns, we had problems before.
Yeah.
With the new leadership coming in, I think our confidence has gone up, and we trust that.
Yeah.
So I think it's, in my opinion, we have a very good working relationship with the board, and we do with our administrators.
Yeah. Okay, anything else? Okay, let's look at the next one. Follows agreed upon procedures in communicating with the staff. Just a thought. This has to do with board members. You as a board go directly to staff, which you know when that happens, that can be harmful to yourselves as a board, it can be harmful to the organization. The thought is it's refreshing for the governance team, consisting of the board and the chancellor, to revisit, streamline, and continually seek ways to enhance methods of communication to make the working relationship even stronger. It comes right back to communication. You're talking with each other. You trust one another. You're working together. This governance indicator was one of the indicators with the lowest ratings. Now, and we're not talking bottom. We're talking, it came out at what? The mean was 3.14. You had 6 people that responded that often. You had one person that responded always. So with that, it brought up, okay, 6 people didn't rate it at the top. It was right below it. It was a 3, not a 4, but one rated it as a 1. So with that being said, how can the board get the information they need while honoring the chancellor's role as the conduit to the board? And I think you've already said that. When there's an issue, you pick up the phone and you talk to your chancellor. So the question for you as a board is how do you get the information that you need while honoring the chancellor's role, Diana's role as the chancellor?
I think the key in that phrase is to honor the role of the chancellor. I think sometimes when we act, if we don't do that, we're just not keeping that intention of honoring your role, is my opinion. And we're not doing it like because we don't honor you. It's more we're just trying to be efficient. Like I'm speaking for myself. I just want to like get things done. I'm like task oriented. I just need to like, here we go. And I think if we can keep it top of mind, the importance of the trust that's built when we do honor you and your role, that it's going to, in the long run, be faster than draw on a straight line when sometimes we need to draw a triangle because it just is going to be what's the foundation of trust, I think.
It's also best for the district, as you know, and as I know, firsthand, we work with the district facilities and such, KVCR and such, in different roles other than trustees. So what I've been doing is anytime we're renting a space or we're doing something where I need to talk to people over at Valley because we're putting together next year's July concert and Summerfest and all, is just to say, I'm doing this, you know, is it okay if I call so-and-so? And so I'm trying not to put the chancellor in a space that she ever doesn't know that there's something going on with one of her board members, even though they're acting as a member of the community representing another organization. You should have no surprises.
That's right.
So I always think about, you know, what would I want to have happen? And I would want to know. You know, she's never asked to know the details. You know, she's always like, oh, back to this one or this one or whatever, I'll make inroads or whatever you want. But just, I don't want to put you in a position where, you know, something comes out in the news that we're doing something fabulous, but you didn't even know was happening. That's just rude. So that's where I'm trying to go. And so I need you to correct me when I don't do that.
Yeah. And I like that, no surprises. Like I said, my grandkids, they love surprises. But just, well, we don't want surprises. We don't want surprises. Okay, let's go to the next one. Evaluates chancellor annually. This really was just basically a tudo. The process of evaluation allows for open, honest, and meaningful discussions to take place in closed session related to the performance of your chancellor. And we've been doing it formally and informally, which is an important process, and we've been facilitating.
We took this last June, right?
Last June, the end of June.
And so she had been on the job how long?
10 months. She started August, so.
Yeah, so I mean, this one was based, I think, our reaction was not based on what we are doing now.
Well,
Based,
Well, we had just finished the
we had
evaluation.
6
Yeah.
people saved always.
Yeah.
So this was based upon, we had done, when we did it, we did the eval at the same retreat. But the bottom line was, is what we wanted to do was we wanted to give you the
Yeah.
recognition and the kudos for the fact that you have a process in place. You do the informal, and I think we're scheduled to do the
yeah,
informal.
I mean, so this reflects, and I like the idea that we have in the closed session
Yes.
agenda, always the evaluation of the chancellor, always. So that whether it is, which allows us a little bit of freedom to be able to talk about issues that she's, and challenges that the district is facing.
And it gives
So-
her direction. so
And it
she
gives her
knows what to do
direction.
with her staff.
Instead of it being once a year, and I think everybody's now gotten used to the fact that it's on the agenda all the time. It doesn't mean that she's in trouble. It means that we are consistent.
The important thing is that you already have adopted a facilitated informal formal process, and it seems to be working very well, and it's been very positive. So we'll go to the next one. Conducts all board meetings, board of trustee meetings efficiently and effectively. The one thing we wanted, this was sort of split also. You have 3 that said always, you have 4 that said often. And we all know that board meetings are held in public, but they're not town hall type meetings. And sometimes, particularly with all that was going on with COVID, they can become more like town hall meetings. Important that you follow the Brown Act. One team and unity of purpose. Effective and productive board meetings are facilitated by the chair, but the one thing we wanted to point out was that all board members have a responsibility for efficient and effective meetings. It's up to all of you to help that, because it's not up just to one person to have to be responsible for maintaining order. You're all a team with one unity, one purpose. This governance indicator, like I said, had a diversity of ratings. You had, like I said, you had 4 that said often, you had 3 that said always. So just quickly, any thoughts you want to share on improving the effectiveness and efficiency of board meetings? And if not, we can continue, because I know we're short on time.
I think it's already happening, sorry, dual silence. It's already happening in that there's been a structure provided to the speakers, and they're doing
Yeah.
a better job at that, so.
Yeah.
I know, I don't do well.
The important thing, though, is you all have responsibility to help. The chair is the one that's selected for that year to facilitate, and the next time maybe it's somebody else. But you all have that opportunity, you all have that responsibility to help out. Okay? Next one, provides opportunities for public participation in board meetings and sets clearly defined procedures for community members to address the board. In changing times, as you know, the board's challenge is to establish an atmosphere of cooperation and independence, embracing differences and encouraging open dialogue. Board meetings must allow for staff and community members to share their thoughts and opinions with the board. Kudos to the board. I understand, talking with Diane, you have developed what we call a recording template that allows to help to stream out a little bit. So it sounds like you've got some things in place for that, and we just wanted to give you kudos for that and recognize that. That's a good start, and I think you did a couple meetings back, so you've done it just a couple times, and it's something you're using to move forward, right? Yeah. Okay? Next one is disseminates information to the public following established procedures. As we know, governance, your role is not just about passing policies. It is what board and leadership need to do together and how to do it. Effective school boards govern with unity of purpose, what you are doing. What thoughts might you share as a board relative to sharing information with the public following steps, procedures? Any thoughts on that? You feel you're good in that area because you really were split. Only 6 answered it. I don't know, one person skipped it, maybe because there was some misunderstanding or not a clarity about what this question was. But 3 answered always and 3 answered often.
My question would be, is it our job to officially disseminate information? I may not have answered it. I don't remember. It was a long time ago, and I'm old. But if there's information to be disseminated to the public following established procedures, I don't see that as being our specific job. I certainly don't think that any of us are going out and disseminating incorrect information. I think we can all agree to that. But if I did skip it, it would have been because I didn't think it was something that was really under our purview. We have the person who's the best person to do it.
Right. Well, but when you talk with the public and stuff, you share information, you share some of the good things you're doing. But as Diana reminded me that you are a policy board, which that was really affirmed in response to this indicator. Okay, next one. Strives to improve governance skills by conducting special board workshops and participating in local and regional conferences. You all know that every board member and every leadership team member needs to make a commitment to be a continuous learner. We're always learning. And I think I've heard you say that. It's critical to stay abreast of the knowledge and the things that are changing. So this was just one of those kudos to the board and to the chancellor for providing board workshops and retreats. Basically, you're on the right pathway and you're doing those things.
I mean, we're now meeting twice a month.
Excuse me?
We're now meeting, for all intents and purposes, we're meeting twice a month. Where before, we used to basically only met once a month. It was kind of a very, very special occasion if we had to meet a second time. Now it's just, we have our regular business meeting, then we have a strategic meeting, so we're meeting twice a month.
Yeah. Well, I think from just our interactions, the workshops that you've been having are outstanding. You've had some good interactions, you've had great dialogue, you've had a lot of professional growth, and it's just been outstanding. So this was just one of those things to recognize the fact that you're doing some good things, and you can we're all continuous learning and continue to learn and grow together.
I have a question for you because of the fact that you conduct these all the time. In your experience working with other board members or other universities, colleges, do you find some people are not functioning as well in terms as a unit, not working together in terms of, like, we respect everybody and we allow, whether it be a communication, but in your experience, have you had some problems with some board members that you felt that you really need to come together, otherwise you're going to continue to not be as effective for the students as they should, in your experience? Because you deal primarily with K through 12 or community colleges?
A lot more with K through 12, but we're working mainly with you, but we're finding that that's one of the key things that cause a lot of division.
Yeah.
Because you have some that they feel they're elected by the public, whether constituents represent them no matter what, and they don't care what happens, to the group. I've had some say, you know what, you say we're a team, but I'm not a team, I'm not part of that team. So how do you pull that together? You're totally different, and I think that's why you are an exemplary board. You're an effective and efficient board because you're doing these things. There are other great boards that are doing the same thing, but I have to say you're one of the exceptions because in fact there are a lot of boards, particularly when COVID hit, everybody was just all over the place. And then when the crowds came, they weren't controlling them. And I think in answer to your question, there's a lot going on out there, and there's a lot of boards that don't give it, unfortunately. And that's why we've been working with them. We've been talking about
that's the whole purpose.
We've been talking about effective governance. And when they're open to that, we have seen huge shifts. From a board that was totally scattered all over the place to a board that finally came together and they were respecting one another.
See, that's why I think it's so important, and that's why I compliment our team, our administrators. Going to conferences, going to retreats, and you have a chance to talk about things. And some don't believe in that, and that's how they get in trouble. I remember when I went to the ACCT conference, the attorney that was dealing with us was saying that there's some board members that are radical. They say, I'm not going to do it. Well, you should do it by law. I'm not going to do it. I says, how can that be possible? They're not following whatever the procedure or the bylaws or what have you. So we're lucky. Maybe we should get a pay increase. We'll talk to our chancellor.
Your reward comes from above, right?
Yeah, no, yeah, well, we did get one. I'm sorry. I think it was $12.
Okay, go to the next one. Cooperatively established policies within the cooperation in the community college district. Obviously, this was 100%, and you all know that it's essential to the success of the organization that the board has a clear common focus to get things working right, and you're doing that. Once a board establishes their common focus, it provides a path for improved board effectiveness and clear direction to the chancellor and her team. That's very evident. With the direction you've given her, and this outstanding, this has become one of my new things. I carry this with me whenever I come here. I carry this because there's a lot of good things that happen that were put in this little booklet. So the governance indicator, as I said, it demonstrates a common understanding and commitment by the board to work with the chancellor and the board. So, good for you. You know, and it's one thing to come up with a set of goals. It's another thing to put together an action plan, and that's one of the things that Dick and I were so impressed with is Diana came up with an action plan. She didn't just say, here's the goals that she came up with. She got a lot of input and put those goals together. Not only did she come to you with an action plan with goals and objectives, but she came to you with an action plan and says, here's how we're going to get there. She's really doing a lot of the rowing, so kudos to
the team. With everyone, with the team, not just me, with all of them.
But it takes a leader to help us move in the right direction. You've got this great team, you've got a great board, so you're functioning together as that team, and that's very.
See, we got a team that is so humble. When we compliment them, they always say, it's the team. But when we have to report to them, he says, oh, you have to go through the chancellor. I don't understand. I'm confused here.
Here's one that sort of came with some diversity of thought. This question 30, actually, section 6, question number 3, allows appropriate input into policy development process. And you know that once a new or revised policy has been developed by your leadership team, the proposed policy is brought to the board for discussion, review, and final approval. Typically, that's a first and second readings, but did you know that if you're not quite there, you can do a third reading, a fourth reading, or a fifth reading if you need to. So, but typically, you do that so that people have an opportunity for input. Board members and members of the public are then encouraged to provide input, suggestions, and advice from their perspectives as proposed in the policy during open session and that review process. So the question that we were going to ask, and we'll go through, but I know we're basically pretty well out of time. But the thought was, what thoughts can you share as a board member relative when you believe that enough input has been received? Because I've heard, as we've talked before, well, we don't have enough opportunity for input. We don't get enough input. So the question would be, what is enough? At what point do you say we've gotten enough input and we're ready to move on? So that was really that's really the question. What does that look like? What is that in your mind? What is enough input? And at what point do you say, time to make a decision?
Well, isn't that when something comes up and we just don't feel we have enough information for it, we ask for a study session. And we have them so that we can exchange ideas, we can get all the info, and then we can go and vote on things. That's why there's not big discussions during the meetings, because we were all fully informed on whatever the topic is.
Yeah.
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 So I want to go to fifth read on things.
Well, and that's something to consider, though. I mean, at some point in time, you're going to have people that don't agree with you, but you got to get to the point and say, hey, we have given ample opportunity.
See, Ann has her own
I think we're really good at
comedian.
listening. Sometimes there have been times where it's like, I know what you're going to say, I don't know if you have all the information that we have, or whatever it is. But I think we're very respectful and good at listening, and we take folks' concerns into consideration in a serious way.
Yeah.
But not Frank, everybody else.
Okay. Next one, establishes clear to identify community college district goals annually based on necessities of the district, commission, with the chancellor. And you know that this is the most important and powerful thing you can do in setting a strategic direction for the college district. And again, this is just another kudos. You all said, all 7 board members says that you are doing this. So kudos to you for recognizing with a unanimous rating the tremendous work done last year. And it's all right here. I mean, this is some of the proof of the product in the thing that was shared tonight. I mean, that's just one indicator of the great things that are being done. And it's really the first time, I think, that you've had such clear goals. And again, not just the goals, but the action plan to accomplish them. Okay? And so with that being said, and I know I just zoomed through this, I'm not going to meet John's extraordinary presentation. I'm not going to do that tonight. But John, my goal is to be able to have John say, that was an extraordinary presentation. So I'm not going to give extraordinary.
Remember.
We wanted to go through it, but I think the thing is that there was a lot of thought put into this, and we wanted to bring it back. So just as you look forward to looking ahead, and Diane and I took your thing from this, looking ahead, because you're always looking ahead, as evidenced by the self-evaluation completed by the board and the 27 strategic plan project, where great progress and forward movement was made by the San Diego Community College District Board and leadership team for the 21-22 school year. Very evident in the comments, very evident in the work that you're doing. The board, chancellor, leadership team should be proud of the team that they have become and what they've accomplished together. And using the self-evaluation summary provided for the board, it's important to begin looking at where do you want to be 3 to 5 years from now. I know, Diana, you're always looking ahead. So you've got the information, and again, this is a summary that was put together with your input. This is not us judging, it's not us making a judgment. This is your input, and we just wanted to report it back to you. So the question is you know where you're at now. Continue to look and continue to follow the leadership of your chancellor leadership team as to where you want to continue to be in, say, 3 to 5 years. And then tips for trustees and leadership team, you all know this. You're in it for the long haul. It's a marathon, not a sprint. Stay strategic and focused, but never forget, and I think I got this from Gloria, the bottom line is meeting the learning needs of your students. And I've heard you and others in this room say that it's all about the students. So I just wanted to leave that, and I wanted to say also that great boards live values and achieve results by creating conditions for the chancellor and the leadership team to do their best work. And obviously you've got someone that's a great leader with the team they've got surrounded by them, and you're giving them an opportunity to do their best work, and with that you're getting great results.
Yeah.
So that's it, and I like as fast as I can go. That was extraordinary, son.
Remember, it took 14 years, so it's going to take another 14 years. Yeah, that's what he said. He put that together with a Metrolink. They were successful, so it'll be another 14 years.
I think one of the factors is that we're finally in an atmosphere where we trust the leadership and we trust each other, where we didn't before. And so it's taken us a while to get there, but I think that's the biggest issue. It's that level of trust, and we didn't have that before. We didn't have that before.
All I can say is I wish other boards could learn from you, because there's a lot of disarray out there what's going on.
Well, yeah.
A lot of dysfunctional districts. You know what? The bottom line is it's impacting the kids.
I spoke with somebody who is a candidate for a school board, and she wanted some advice. And she said, I'm there to speak for the parents and for the and such a program. And I said, that's not your role as a board member. That's not your role. That's, when you evaluate the leadership of that district, that's where you have to evaluate it. But she saw herself only as an advocate for a particular program or for a particular group of parents. And that was sad to hear that. Very sad.
Well, I need to bring some of you, as when we go out and work with them, I need to bring some of you that can give testimonies to it. This is what it really takes.
Yeah, that's what it is.
So thank you for the opportunity to work together with you.
We enjoyed it.
Our schedule in January, the January retreat, we'll keep you informed, whatever else, but we really appreciate, Dick and I both really appreciate working together with you and your team and the board. Great things, move forward together, so thank you. Thank you for your help. Appreciate it.
Well, I think at this point, we are going to adjourn the meeting, And our next meeting is our business meeting on September the 8th at 4 o'clock in this boardroom. And so I wish you all a good evening.
November the what?
What?
What's the next meeting?
October the 8th.
October the, after the,
Yeah. So, good night.
Thank you.